India is the world's third largest car market. More than 5 million vehicles were made in the country last year. The city of Chennai has emerged as the hub of car making in India. It has been nicknamed the Detroit of Asia because auto giants, including BMW, Hyundai, Nissan, Tata Motors, and Mahindra, have a presence there. Meanwhile, the country's growing middle class is shifting to luxury vehicles from inexpensive cars. But most of the cars made in India stay in the country. Last year, it exported nearly 700,000 vehicles. Now, that pales when compared to other Asian countries. Thailand exported more than 1 million cars, South Korea 2.3 million, China 3.3 million, and Asia's biggest auto exporter was Japan, with around 4.4 million units exported. Joining us with more is DW correspondent Charu Kartikeya in Delhi. Charu, India's auto sector has transformed fast, but it's still far behind other Asian countries. Why is that?
Well, a host of reasons, actually. To begin with, COVID made a huge dent in the auto sector, and recovery started only in 2022. And even then, some of the problems still lingered on. And now the semiconductor chip shortage that has been affecting auto sector the world over has been affecting the auto sector in India as well. The supply chain suffered massive disruptions. And what we've seen in the last year or so is that there have been long waiting periods, and especially for SUVs, which sales are rising now, but some of the SUV orders, they've seen waiting time of over a year. Input costs have also been rising. There have been various kinds of inflationary pressures also. Prices continue to rise throughout 2022. They're rising even now. Even two-wheeler prices have gone up and their sales have gone down. So there are many factors which are actually contributing to the scenario at hand. But yeah, things appear to be changing a little bit.
Well, you mentioned a lot of factors there. So, of course, several car makers from different parts of the world, including Germany, on the Indian market. So which ones of them are likely to help drive the growth in that market in the future?
Well, most of them are homegrown brands. Maruti, for example, it continues to be the king, really, of the sector, the big market leader. It has about 40% market share. In fact, some reports suggest it's even more than 40%. Things might change in the future a little bit because Maruti is yet to focus on electric vehicles. But apart from that, the next spot is occupied by Hyundai. And then there are other homegrown brands like Tata Motors and Mahindra. Most of them are also focusing on EVs. So the future might see a bit of a disruption in the way the automakers are lined up in terms of market share.
Now, you just mentioned electric vehicles there. The Indian government approved a $7 billion plan for electric buses over the next decade. Now, how is the market for electric vehicles and maybe even hybrid cars, if we start talking about green vehicles, developing?
Well, the market is really electric right now, Chiponda, and pun intended. As you can see, there's a lot of there's a lot of focus on public transport as well because of India's green strategy. And in terms of personal vehicles as well, a lot of people are going for electric vehicles. The market itself, it grew by more than 200% in 2022, according to one report that I saw. The homegrown brand Tata Tata Motors, it leads in the electric vehicle segment. The big market leader, as we discussed earlier, Maruti, is yet to focus on electric vehicles, but even Maruti is making hybrids. So taking hybrids and electric vehicles together, people are interested in buying them. A lot of infrastructure is also being set up, for example, charging stations. Even residential societies are now building charging stations. So the future does look very bright for electric vehicles.
Charu, thanks for joining us. And it's not just the auto sector. Many areas are booming in India, which overtook China as the world's most populous nation earlier this year. And while it faces very different challenges from its neighbor, the government wants to make India one of the world's biggest economies.
India is a country of superlatives with a growing economy, but it's also facing many challenges. The country aims to have the world's third largest economy by 2030. What makes India so successful? One factor is its population. More than half of the country's inhabitants are less than 30 years old. India has been fast approaching China to be the world's most populous country for a while now. But there are also structural problems, including serious issues with India's job market. Most jobs are low-skilled and poorly paid. For academics, on the other hand, there's too little work because the field is not developed enough yet. Even worse, only 20% of the female population has a paid job. The Indian school system teaches too few basic skills and trains fewer academics than other industrialized nations.
Across Indian schools, particularly in rural areas, children go right up to class 3, 4, 5, grade 3, 4, 5, without being able to read a single line in any language, not just in English, without being able to do simple calculations, including addition and subtraction.
India's economic growth is also reflected in the growing prosperity of many people. The middle class is expanding, and there are increasing numbers of rich people at the top who have money to invest in the economy. India is also #1 globally for mobile internet use, and Apple already prefers to produce smartphones in India rather than in China.
If Apple comes in, for example, it brings in with it not only the Apple technology, Apple's management style, it also brings in the way of doing things.
But India won't be able to rely on market forces alone. To become one of the top nations economically, the country needs strong policies that emphasize education, infrastructure, and businesses.